Hello, Bad-Tempered Badger here. Now, recently, some prick on Twitter had this to say about me. Apparently, I stand for absolutely nothing at face value, but am actually far right. Well, I think anyone who's ever actually spoken to me about any issue, ever, can tell you that's not accurate, but I thought it might be fun for me to go through the old political compass test, so that people can get a better idea of where I stand on things. So let's give that a go, shall we? Alright, let's give this a go. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I'm opposed to transnational corporations in general, as I think they are invariably exploitative. They also tend to be entirely profit-driven and impersonal to the point of psychopathy, rarely acting in the interests of people. I also oppose globalism as an idea, but if, as the question says, it's inevitable, its only purpose should be to benefit people, not corporations. Strongly agree. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. No, I absolutely wouldn't. I firmly believe that any authority should be open to question, opposition, and ridicule, and my country has done some pretty shitty things throughout its history. It's done some good stuff too, but no one is infallible, and a country is just a big collection of fallible people who happen to live together. Strongly disagree. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I see nothing wrong with being proud of where you're from. One shouldn't be unquestionably proud, or too proud to admit the faults of their homeland. But having and showing fondness and pride for one's home is only natural. Disagree. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. No, I don't think so. I don't subscribe to the idea that there are no genetic differences between the various races of humans, and I do think those differences may affect performance in certain areas. However, these are averages and should not affect how one treats any individual person. Disagree. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's a good way to get stabbed in the back. Agreeing in one area does not equal agreement on anything else. Just look at the online atheist community for evidence of that. Trust is earned, not bought by allegiance to the same cause. Disagree. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. No legal system is infallible. It's not possible to cover every nuance and eventuality in a pre-planned legal framework, so of course it's sometimes necessary to break laws that are wrong or do not fit the situation. Laws are made for a reason, though, and going against them should be carefully considered. Agree. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I don't think fusing entertainment with information is worrying in and of itself. I think it helps engage people in being better informed. As long as it's clear which parts are accurate information and which parts are narrative, I see no problem there. There is a worrying trend of people taking jokes as someone's legitimate opinion, though. Disagree. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. I think this is true to an extent. The poor and working class, in my view, tend to be quite divided by nationality, as travel is expensive, while the rich and influential tend to fly around the world on a whim. This creates something of a disconnect between poor and rich, as they live completely different lives. Megacorps don't care what nation those they exploit come from, as long as their numbers go up. Agree. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I'm not an economist. I don't know which of these would be most numerically beneficial to focus on. That being said, people doing actual work to produce actual things and provide actual services for actual people is real. The concept of inflation is part of the entirely mentally constructed world of money, which is not real. Can't be used to make anything, or be eaten, or provide services without people's belief in it. Focus on real things. Disagree. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. I think so. Another example of corporate entities being fundamentally exploitative and money-driven. They would, if left unchecked, destroy anything and everything if it meant an increase to the balance sheet. Strongly agree. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is a fundamentally good idea. This idea has some merit, but I think it is unworkable without an overbearing dictatorship government to determine who needs what, who can do what, and to enforce those roles on them. I oppose authoritarianism in any form. Strongly disagree. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. I agree with the statement, I just don't see a better option that's workable in reality, so agree. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I'm torn on this. On the one hand, I think people should live more in harmony with nature, allowing the natural rhythms and movements of animals to go on uninterrupted, and should do their best to progress towards greener, more environmentally sound living. I think the life of the nomad is better in many ways to the life of the city dweller. On the other hand, private nature reserves are some of the only things keeping people from exploiting nature to extinction, and I want as much private land between me and anyone else as possible because people are shit. I'll put agree, but on the understanding that in this overpopulated world it's an unfortunate necessity. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. It's regrettable, certainly, but I don't see that society is owed a contribution. No one in it asked to be born there. It would be better if everyone supported each other and did their best to get on, but it should be through choice. Those who choose to focus on themselves, as long as they aren't actively harming others in the process, are just people with different priorities. Agree. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. What is protectionism in trade? Let's look it up. Protectionism is the economic policy of restricting imports from other countries through methods such as tariffs on imported goods, import quotas, and a variety of other government regulations. I don't know, maybe. I'm not an economist or an international trade expert. Could be useful, I suppose. I'll put agree tentatively. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. No. Profit-making corporate entities are an unfortunate byproduct of capitalistic systems and often cause great harm. They allow a lot of progress too, but should not be left unchecked. Those running them should make every effort to ensure they do good in the world. Strongly disagree. The rich are too highly taxed. Fuck off, strongly disagree. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. I think society should provide basic medical care with all the things required to fix them already paid for. If someone wants to pay extra for a private room during their recovery, that's fine. In the UK, this is kind of what we have. The NHS provides all the basics, but is underfunded and a bit shit in a lot of areas, like having enormous waiting times and a lot of organisational problems. Going private means those problems can often be avoided. I'll put agree. Governments should penalise businesses that mislead the public. I agree. The role of government should always be to protect people from corporate exploitation. Companies manoeuvre and scheme to get everything they can from their customers. There must be something to balance them. Strongly agree. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yes. The government should protect people from exploitation. Multinational business monopolies are specifically designed to exploit by allowing price fixing and gouging and stifling competition. You can't take your business to a competitor if there's only one game in town. Strongly agree. The freer the market, the freer the people. I don't entirely agree. A free market implies freedom for megacorps to do whatever they like. What they almost invariably like to do is pad their profit margins by exploiting anyone and everyone who does not have the financial resources to oppose them. Freedom of people is good, but corporations over a certain size must be heavily restricted. Disagree. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Every person has the right to autonomy of their own body. This means that a woman has the right to decide not to be pregnant. A fetus is not yet a person. It is a growing bundle of cells that has a huge effect on the woman it is living off. That being said, I am a little more shaky on late-term abortions, once the growing human is potentially capable of perceiving pain. I'm still far more on the side of mother's choice, but I think in these cases it must be considered with a lot more care and compassion. Strongly disagree. All authority should be questioned. Absolutely all. No authority should ever be above criticism, ridicule, and removal. Any government should be constantly afraid of removal by those it governs. Strongly agree. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth makes the whole world blind and unable to properly enjoy corn on the cob. Now, I'm not a pacifist. I think in exceptional circumstances, violence is sometimes necessary. However, it has to end. Constant back and forth tit-for-tat reciprocation just escalates and makes everything worse for everyone. Fight for a cause, but stop when the goals are achieved. Disagree. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theatres or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I sort of agree. It shouldn't really be up to the people to pay for things they don't support. However, there is something to be said for culture and history being preserved, and for research that isn't financially beneficial being carried out. I suppose I'll tentatively put disagree, but only in very limited cases. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. As someone who was taught at home for a long time, I agree. I did much better out of school than in. School fits some, but not all, and should not be pushed on those it doesn't fit. Other options should always be available. Strongly agree. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. I used to be very strongly towards one end of this. Diversity is strength and all that. These days my view has become somewhat tempered with experience. I am against forced segregation, discrimination, racism, sexism, and so on, and strongly believe that anyone should be able to go anywhere and speak to anyone. But I don't think diversity should be forced. People should not be told they have to go against their preferences to not be called a bigot. I'll put disagree, but this one needs more thought and discussion. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. In certain exceptional cases, I think it can be useful, but generally, I'm an advocate of explaining things to children so they understand and can think and question. I'll put agree, but very rarely. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. It's natural for everyone to keep some things secret from everyone else. It's an important part of a person's mental health to have some things that are their own and the business of no one else. Children are no different. Of course children keep secrets. Good parents are the ones whose children trust them enough that they can discuss those secret things if they become problems. Strongly agree. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offence. Obviously. There are less complications than with smoking or drinking, and it's a fun experience if used in moderation. It also has a lot of medical uses. Why is this still a discussion? The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. No. The primary function of education should be to teach young people how to get the most out of life. This should include how to support oneself financially, but should also include a lot of other areas. Modern jobs, in the vast majority of cases, are not a fulfilling experience and are only useful as a way to afford to live. Disagree. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Discouraged, maybe, but not outright prevented. Though there is an argument to be made that knowingly having a child that will be nothing but a drain on already struggling healthcare systems and suffer throughout their lives is causing active harm to others. I'm not sure about the solution here, so I'll tentatively put disagree. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. No, the most important thing for children to learn is to think critically, be skeptical, question everything, and be adaptable. Strongly disagree. There are no savage and civilized peoples, there are only different cultures. Cultures are not made equal. Some cultures are harmful to those within them, and anyone who encounters them. Those cultures should be criticized, but without hatred to those born within them. Disagree. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. On face value, I agree. But in practice, I think this can easily be used to justify treating workers terribly, exploiting the vulnerable, and making a whole workforce of depressed, suicidal wage slaves. Disagree. When you are troubled, it's better to not think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. It can help to distract oneself, especially if one is bothered by something one cannot change. However, sometimes distraction means that one never attempts to deal with the problem. I know all about that, master's degree in procrastination over here. Disagree, because not in all cases. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. No, I disagree. I don't think it's easy to fully integrate into a different society, but it's possible. I don't see that it's needed, though. One doesn't need to abandon one's history, just fit in enough to get along. Disagree. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. No, it isn't. Corporations cause a lot of harm without care and exploit anyone and anything. This can drive scientific and technological progress, but those don't by themselves make people better off or happier. Strongly disagree. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. As a Brit, I have a built-in sense of pride about the BBC. The less sensationalised format that comes with not chasing ratings is a good thing, but given their recent missteps, I'm bringing this down to a tentative disagree. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counter-terrorism. I absolutely agree with this one. The goal of terrorism is to make people afraid so they act against their own interests, and it has succeeded. Governments use the threat of it to push authoritarian laws and surveillance. If we give up our values due to fear, did we ever really hold them? Strongly agree. The significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Well, it does avoid delay, but delay is what gives people time to think, consider all available options, vote, make better decisions, and avoid authoritarianism. Nice try, big brother. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Fuck off. Surveillance culture and fear have allowed successive governments to gradually tighten their grips and strip away freedom layer upon layer. Everyone needs to be worried. Strongly disagree. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Maybe, in very extreme cases, makes retrials given new evidence rather difficult though. Perhaps as an absolute last resort, but I think it needs to be a lot less prevalent in many countries than it is now. So I'll put disagree, but with the understanding that in certain absolute very extreme cases it might be necessary. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. No. The more equal a society is, rights-wise, the more civilized it is. No one should be considered above or below anyone else as people. Strongly disagree. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Art is about emotion. Any piece of art that conveys emotion to the viewer has succeeded, at least at a basic level. Completely abstract art can still convey meaning. Disagree. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I don't agree. What's the point of punishment if not to teach better behaviour? The justice system should be about benefit for all, not petty revenge. Disagree. It's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. This might be true in rare cases, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Disagree. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. By what metric? Is the goal profit or happiness? I'd rather have less and be content than have more and be miserable. The point of society is to allow people to move past constant worry for basic needs and enjoy more of their time. Strongly disagree. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Only if they choose to be. Trends indicate that women are more likely to choose caring and homemaking than men, but it should always be a choice. Disagree. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Yes, they absolutely fucking are. Just as they exploit everything else they touch. Anyone who can't fight back is trampled. Strongly agree. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Accepting that some things can't be changed is important, but trying to change the things that can is more so. Never stop questioning and challenging. Disagree. Astrology accurately explains many things. Astrology is full of random coincidence and predictions so vague or cleverly worded that they could apply to anyone while still being meaningful. It can be fun to indulge in, but should not be taken seriously. Strongly disagree. You cannot be moral without being religious. Yes, you absolutely can. Strongly disagree. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. No, I don't think so. Charity is less effective overall, but I'd say generally more ethical and can help those who don't fit the mainstream far more. Both are needed, although there needs to be a lot less exploitation by the heads of charitable organisations. Disagree. Some people are naturally unlucky. Some people think they are and keep making the same mistakes. Strongly disagree. It's important that my child's school instills religious values. What religious values? Jedi? Satanist? Wiccan? No, school should be religiously neutral. Strongly disagree. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. No sex between any number of consenting adults, as long as everyone involved is enjoying it and has agreed to it, is entirely fine and moral. Also, sex outside marriage is one of the main ways people work out if they're compatible enough to get married. Strongly disagree. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Why should being an all-male or all-female couple exclude anyone from adoption? As long as they are capable of providing a stable, loving home and family for the child to grow up in, the exact makeup of that is pretty irrelevant. Strongly agree. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Of course it should. What the hell else am I going to do on a Friday night? Or Saturday night? Or Saturday day? Or any other time I'm feeling saucy? Strongly agree. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. It's no business of anyone but the consenting adults consenting to engage in that consensual activity. No one has any business poking their noses into someone else's sexual escapades. Strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. That's obviously false, as is demonstrated by animals in nature displaying homosexual tendencies and humans acting along the same lines. Strongly disagree. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Maybe in certain circles, but generally speaking, I'd say no, so disagree. Now let's see where we come out at the end of all this. In the blah 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 blah. Let's get on with it. Yes, okay. See where people stand. Oh look, it's put me right down in the libertarian left, exactly where it put me last time. What a surprise. I hope that clears that up to everyone's satisfaction. So, in conclusion, if you want to know what someone's views are, or where they stand on something, fucking ask them. Thanks for watching, everyone.
All right, I can see